The scent of stale flowers and grief hung heavy in the air of my in-laws' house. It was a smell I knew all too well, a haunting echo from a life I had already lived. My brother-in-law, Marcus, was gone, killed in a car accident that left a void filled only by his widow Clara and their young son Leo. In my first life, this was the moment my world began to unravel. This was when my husband, Daniel, had turned to me with hollow eyes and declared he was giving his payroll card to Clara. When I, foolishly believing we were partners, voiced my concern about our own finances and our daughter, Sophie, he had erupted. The words cold-blooded, heartless, and you should understand her struggle were seared into my soul. His parents had chimed in, their disdain for me crystallizing in the ancient, cruel proverb, "A bad wife can ruin 3 generations." They had then taken to the internet, painting me as the villain, and I was devoured by the wolves of online strangers. This time, when Daniel cleared his throat, his face a mask of solemn duty, I knew what was coming. I felt the old panic rise, a phantom pain from a wound not yet inflicted. But I swallowed it down. I had died in a retail stockroom in my previous life, my body giving out after years of working 3 jobs to support a family that saw me as an ATM and a nuisance. I would not make that mistake again. "Elara," Daniel began, his voice low and strained. "With Marcus gone, Claire and Leo, I have to help them. I'm going to give her my payroll card." I felt his eyes on me, waiting for the argument, preparing for a fight that would cement his righteousness. I let the silence stretch for a beat, then 2, feigning a moment of zoning out. When I met his gaze, my expression was one of serene understanding. "Of course, Daniel," I said, my voice soft and unwavering. "It's the only right thing to do. Clara must be shattered raising a child alone. I support you completely." The shock on his face was almost comical. His jaw tightened then slackened. He had braced for a storm and found only calm seas. It threw him off balance. "Good," he said, the word coming out too quickly. "I thought you might disagree. But even if you did, my mind was made up." The defensiveness was still there, a habit he didn't need to break because I hadn't challenged him. With that, he turned and walked out, the little piece of plastic that funded our lives clutched in his hand, destined for Clara's purse. The moment the door clicked shut, the serene mask fell from my face. A cold, clear focus settled over me. Moving with a purpose I hadn't felt in years, I grabbed my phone. I didn't call a friend or my family. I called movers. "Yes," I said, my voice crisp and businesslike. "I need you to come to my address immediately. Please take down our wall-mounted air conditioner, our washing machine, and our living room television. Deliver them to this address." I read off Claire's apartment number. Next, I opened a neighborhood chat group, a viper's nest of busybodies I usually avoided. I typed a quick, tantalizing message. "Big drama unfolding at Oakwood Apartments, Building B. You want to see this?" I pinned the location right at the entrance to Clara's building. I paid the movers extra for a little theatrical flair. "I need you to drive the truck around the complex a few times," I instructed. "Honk the horn loudly. Make sure everyone knows you've arrived." As the movers worked, efficiently dismantling the comforts of our home, I felt a pang of something, not loss but grim satisfaction. These were appliances I had scrimped and saved for. The TV was a luxury we'd finally bought after a year of saving. Daniel had forgotten that. He only remembered how to give things away. I arrived at Clara's building just as the movers' truck, horn blaring, pulled to a stop. A small crowd was already gathering, drawn by my anonymous tip and the commotion. Perfect. Clara and Daniel came downstairs together, their faces etched with identical confusion. Clara, for all her supposed grief, was dressed in sleek black loungewear, her hair artfully tousled. She looked less like a grieving widow and more like a model in a perfume commercial about sadness. "Elara, what is all this?" Daniel asked, his brow furrowed as he took in the movers carrying our large television. I didn't answer him directly. Instead, I pinched the tender skin of my thigh hard. Tears, sharp and immediate, sprang to my eyes. I rushed forward and took Clara's hands in mine, my grip firm. "Clara," I began, my voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "Your husband, my brother, is gone. It's not easy to raise a child alone. Daniel said he'd give you his payroll card, but I thought that's not enough. It's just money." I gestured dramatically to the appliances now being carried into her building. So, I brought you our brand new TV, our air conditioner, and our washing machine. We'll take your old ones. Don't you worry, I'll make sure you live comfortably. No worse than when Marcus was alive. I mentioned Marcus's name and let out a wail, a performance of grief that would have won awards. Oh Marcus, you left just like that. How is Clara supposed to manage with the child? I sobbed, pulling Clara into a tight embrace she clearly didn't want. She tried to step back, but I held fast. The neighbors murmured, their whispers feeding the narrative I was crafting. The sister-in-law is like a mother, one woman said, her voice carrying. This family really treats her well. I heard her husband died in a car accident. Poor widow and child, another added. Her brother-in-law even gave her his payroll card. Such loyalty and kindness. Daniel watched me, his initial confusion shifting to a different kind of discomfort. He saw the neighbors' approving nods, heard their praise for our generosity. He was trapped by the very image of sainthood he wanted to project. Elara, what are you doing? He hissed under his breath when I finally released a flustered Clara. I saved up for a long time to replace those. I looked at him, my eyes wide with feigned innocence. Daniel, Clara just rented this new place. She doesn't have any decent appliances. How can that work? These are the ones we just replaced. They're perfect for her. You men aren't as detail-oriented as we women are. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Even if you give her your payroll card, she wouldn't have the heart to spend it on big appliances for herself. Let's just give them to her so she can be more comfortable. Then I delivered the masterstroke. I gave him a questioning, almost hurt look. Daniel, you're not getting stingy, are you? It was a perfect checkmate. Caught in front of the audience he craved to impress, he could only backpedal. Of course not, he said a little too loudly. How could I be stingy when it's for Clara? He then, with a strained smile, helped the movers carry our former possessions into Clara's apartment. When little Leo saw the shiny new TV, his eyes lit up. Great. I've got a new TV to watch, he cheered, clapping his hands. I patted his head, my smile benevolent. Good boy. If you ever want anything, just tell your uncle and aunt. We'll make it happen. Really? Leo's eyes darted from his mother to Daniel. Daniel, buoyed by the public admiration, smiled warmly. Your aunt is right. If you need anything, just tell me. He looked at Leo and I saw a flicker of something that should have been reserved for our daughter. You're our only nephew. My money is for you to spend. Clara, sitting beside him, nodded in approval. Watching the three of them, a perfect cozy little unit, my nails dug so deep into my palms I nearly drew blood. This was the image from my first life. Daniel, the devoted uncle and brother-in-law, and me, the exhausted, resentful outsider. But this time I was in the picture and I was the one holding the brush. I had given away the TV, the AC, the washer. I had publicly anointed Daniel as the family savior. And I knew with a cold certainty that the first threads of their comfort were already beginning to unravel. That night, as the summer heat pressed in on our now appliance-bare apartment, would be the first test. Daniel, tossing and turning in our sweat-dampened sheets, would learn the true cost of his generosity. And I would be there to remind him gently of the noble sacrifice he had chosen to make. The game was on. The heat that night was a physical presence. A thick, suffocating blanket that settled over our apartment, now stripped of its air conditioner. Daniel thrashed next to me, his skin slick with sweat. The silence was broken only by the frantic whirring of a small standing fan I'd dug out of the closet. A pathetic sentinel against the sweltering oppression. Why is it so damn hot? He finally growled, sitting bolt upright. Why isn't the air conditioner on? The darkness hid my smile. You forgot. I said, my voice a model of gentle reminder. We gave the air conditioner to your sister-in-law. I paused, letting the weight of that statement sink into the stifling air. Stay calm, Daniel. Think cool thoughts. At least Clara and Leo are sleeping soundly tonight in a cool apartment. We can put up with a little discomfort for their sake, can't we? He let out a sound of pure frustration, a guttural groan that was immensely satisfying. He tossed and turned for another hour, the sheets tangling around his legs. This is impossible, he muttered. Tomorrow you go buy a new one. First thing. With what money? I asked, the question hanging in the dark room like a guillotine. What do you mean, with what money? Your salary. I only make $3,000 a month, I interrupted, my tone flat. And with half of this month's grocery budget already gone to stock Clara's fridge with the good stuff, and the water, electricity and gas bills still due, there's nothing left, Daniel. The well is dry. He was silent. I could almost hear the gears grinding in his head, the slow dawning realization that his act of charity had immediate and unpleasant consequences for his own life. He didn't sleep a wink. I, on the other hand, drifted off to the symphony of his discomfort, a lullaby more soothing than any I'd known in years. The next morning, Daniel got up early, his movements jerky with fatigue and irritation. He couldn't escape the heat of our home fast enough, no doubt eager for the climate-controlled sanctuary of his office. The moment the door closed behind him, I was in motion. I packed a small bag for Sophie and me, a change of clothes, her homework, a novel for me. We're going on an adventure, sweetheart, I told my confused daughter. Where, Mama? To Aunt Clara's. It's too hot here. We headed straight to Clara's apartment. She answered the door after a long delay, her face puffy with sleep and instantly wary when she saw us standing there. Alara, what are you doing here so early? It's just too hot to bear at our place, Clara, I said breezily, brushing past her into the living room. The glorious Arctic blast of the air conditioner I had owned yesterday washed over me. It was heavenly. Her apartment was chilled to perfection, the doors wide open to let the expensive cold air flow freely. After all, Daniel was paying the utilities. Why shouldn't we enjoy it? Alara, this isn't really appropriate, Clara said, her voice tight. The place isn't big and it's inconvenient with 2 kids running around. I turned and looked at her, my smile not quite reaching my eyes. How come you didn't say it was too crowded when you used to come to my place for the air conditioning all last summer? I countered. It's fine. Sophie will do her homework by herself. I'll help you with chores and cleaning while you rest in your room. We won't disturb each other. I was throwing her own words from my previous life right back at her. The color drained from her face slightly. He was caught. At least when I had said I would do chores, I actually did them. Clara in the past would plant herself on my couch, scrolling through her phone, never lifting a finger. She choked on her own hypocrisy, unable to form a rebuttal. By lunchtime, I intercepted her as she reached for her phone to order takeout. No, I said, patting my chest. I'll cook. Ordering takeout every day isn't good, especially for a growing boy like Leo. When I opened her refrigerator, I had to school my features into neutrality. The shelves were crammed full of food. Prime cuts of steak, fresh salmon, organic chicken, piles of pork chops. This was the pitiful widow Daniel was so concerned about. Sophie and I ate meat maybe twice a week, carefully budgeting. Here Clara had enough to host a banquet. Seeing my raised eyebrows, Clara rushed to explain. My parents sent it. They said I've lost weight since, So they asked someone from our hometown to bring it over. I nodded along, playing the part of the concerned sister-in-law, though I knew it was utter nonsense. In both my lives, I'd barely seen her parents a handful of times, and their visits were solely to demand money for her unwell brother. People like that didn't stock a freezer with gourmet meat. I'd seen the discarded packaging in the trash. It was from the upscale supermarket nearby, the one that charged a fortune for a membership. So I cooked up a storm. I made lemon herb salmon, garlic mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. Then I took out my phone and took beautifully arranged photos of the spread, which I promptly posted on social media. When family sticks together, no one suffers, I captioned it. As long as Daniel and I are here, Clara will never want for a home-cooked meal. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. You went to Clara's place? I replied instantly, my thumbs flying over the screen. Clara can't cook. Ordering takeout every day isn't good, especially when our nephew is still growing. I decided to make them 3 meals a day so they can eat well. It's the least I can do. His response was swift. Don't you have work? Your brother just passed away, I typed, laying it on thick. In a time like this, of course, Clara's emotional well-being comes first. I quit my job. The little bubble on my screen showed he was typing. It appeared, vanished, and reappeared for a full 2 minutes. But in the end, no message came through. I let out a cold, silent laugh and shut my phone off. Of course, he could hand his entire salary to Clara because he was certain I'd use my own wages to support our household. In my previous life I'd worked myself into an early grave for that certainty. This time I was done exhausting myself. I quit too. Let's all sink together and see who breaks first. At dinner, I heaped Leo's bowl with the expensive pork chops. All you need to do is eat well, sweetheart, I cooed. Let the adults handle the rest. Thanks, Auntie, he said, grinning with a mouthful of food. This is amazing. Way better than the ones Mom takes me out for. That big mouth of his was a gift. Clara's eyes widened in panic and she quickly shoved another piece of meat into his mouth. Eat. Maybe that'll stop you from talking so much. Looks like you've been eating out plenty, I said mildly, watching her squirm. Worried I might overthink, Clara quickly heaped a pile of meat into Sophie's bowl. Sophie, you eat too. It's all country-raised pork. Nothing expensive. It had been ages since my daughter had eaten so freely. Her eyes shone with delight as she devoured the meal. That small, genuine spark of happiness in her face steeled my resolve. This was for her. All of it. That night, Daniel claimed he had to work late and would sleep at the office. The moment I heard that, I turned to Clara. Clara, our AC's broken and Daniel won't be back tonight. Sophie and I will stay over at your place. Don't worry about us. We'll just make a bed on the living room floor. And in the morning, I'll make you all breakfast so I don't have to make a separate trip. Clara didn't even manage to get a refusal out before she stomped back to her bedroom and slammed the door shut. Not long after, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I bought a new AC, he said, his voice tight. You and Sophie need to go home now. Don't disturb Clara's rest. When Clara walked us out, I could see her jaw was clenched so tight I feared her teeth might crack. She was fuming, but she still forced a pained smile. It was a beautiful, terrible sight. Clara, I'll be back tomorrow, I said cheerfully. Don't worry, you don't need to lift a finger for the housework. I'll take care of it all. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her expression was like she just swallowed a fly before she turned and went back inside without a word. On the way home, Sophie beamed, clutching my hand. Mom, it's so nice at Aunt Clara's. We get AC all day, TV to watch and meat to eat. Her simple, easily pleased words were a dagger to my heart. In my past life, once Daniel gave all his money to Clara's household, I had pinched pennies until they screamed. I wouldn't even let Sophie attend a summer camp her friends were going to. Yet Clara had taken Leo on an overseas study trip without a second thought. The thought made me pick up the phone right then and call Sophie's teacher. Hello, Mrs. Davies. This is Alara Vance. I'd like to confirm Sophie's spot in the summer science camp. Mom, really? Sophie's eyes widened in disbelief as I hung up. I can go? But you said it was too expensive before. You said we couldn't afford it. I didn't explain much. I just smiled and squeezed her hand. Mom doesn't feel like saving money anymore. Even if I save it, it's never spent on us anyway. The moment she realized it was real, Sophie cheered and jumped around in excitement. The very next day, I packed her things and sent her off on the month-long camp. This month, I had vowed I would make Daniel and Clara cough up everything they owed me. The stage was set. The pawns were moving. And I was just getting started. The silence in the apartment after Sophie left for camp was profound. It wasn't just the absence of her cheerful chatter. It was the weight of my own resolve, solid and cold in the quiet. Daniel, for his part, seemed to be spending more and more time at the office. I knew he was escaping to the free air conditioning, but I also suspected he was avoiding the new, unsettling dynamic at home. A home that was now financially barren and uncomfortably warm, despite the new, cheap AC unit he'd bought that struggled against the summer heat. He discovered the camp fee on our joint bank statement. Our account that was now, aside from that single transaction, as empty as a dried-up well. His brows knitted together in a familiar frown of financial anxiety. Alara, the summer camp? Where did you get the money for this? He asked, his voice a low rumble of controlled irritation. 10,000? She's about to start high school entrance exams. This is a reckless time to be spending like this. I met his gaze evenly, my expression one of calm reason. The teacher called it a golden ticket to Lincoln High School, Daniel. It's an academic intensive camp. Once she attends and passes their internal assessment, she's practically guaranteed an early admission spot. That kind of opportunity isn't open to just anyone. You have to be in the top 10 of her class to even qualify. I let the implication hang in the air. Our daughter is brilliant and you would deny her this? How could I not spend the money on her future? Even a man as morally flexible as Daniel knew that education was a battleground where he couldn't afford to be the villain. He sighed, the sound heavy with feigned burden. Yesterday you said you quit your job. Were you serious? Without your income, how is our family supposed to live? So that was it. He had his eyes on my salary, the safety net he'd always taken for granted. The one that had allowed him to play the generous hero with his money. You eat at the company cafeteria anyway, I said with a dismissive wave. I can eat whatever's left when I cook 3 meals a day for Clara. With Sophie away, there's barely any expense for us. I leaned forward, my voice dropping into a conspiratorial, concerned tone. And with the way things are at Clara's now, you saw her. She didn't even have the mood to cook. If the adults don't eat, fine, but Leo is still growing. How can we not help? You put in the money, I'll put in the work. I'm sure Clara will be able to move on soon. Just bear with it for now. I piled on the moral pressure, framing my unemployment not as a rebellion, but as a higher form of service to his family. He had nothing to say. The logic was inescapable, a trap of his own making. He even stumbled a bit on his way out the door, the weight of his own manipulated conscience throwing him off balance. The next morning I showed up at Clara's place even earlier. Her face was a thundercloud, but Leo was delighted. I had become his favorite person. I let him watch cartoons for hours, made him pancakes shaped like animals, and defended him when Clara tried to enforce any semblance of discipline. He clung to me, his childish loyalty easily bought with sugar and screen time. Don't be so hard on him, Clara, I'd say, pulling the boy into a hug. He's processing his grief in his own way. She would seethe, unable to argue against the language of therapy and loss I wielded so effectively. We were in the middle of a lunch I had prepared from her well-stocked kitchen when my phone shrilled. The screen flashed with mother-in-law. A grim smile touched my lips. Right on schedule. I put her on speakerphone. Alara, why haven't you sent us the monthly living allowance? Her voice was like shattering glass, sharp and angry. Do you have no shame making us chase you down for $2,000? This allowance was a monthly tithe my in-laws extracted, a $2,000 tribute no matter our circumstances. In my past life, after Daniel handed his salary to Clara, I'd delivered takeout at night to scrape together that money for them, terrified of their disapproval. Thinking about it now, I must have been insane. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Didn't Daniel tell you? I snapped, my voice crisp and cold. He gave his salary card to Clara. I'm taking care of her now and I've quit my job. Where exactly would I get $2,000 to give you? There was a stunned silence on the other end. What? Why would you quit your job? She finally shrieked. If you quit, who's going to give me money? You can't just not give me money. In the background, I could hear my father-in-law swearing. I hung up without another word. The color had drained from Clara's face. Her lips trembled. What? What happened? Did she ask you for money? I pretended to be casual, waving a hand as I cleared the plates. Don't worry about it, Clara. Since Daniel gave you his salary card, of course, we don't have money to give her. I'm sure she'll understand. I gave her a reassuring smile. Truthfully, your mother-in-law is at least fair in one way. She dislikes all her daughters-in-law equally. Clara's face was a picture of panic. She knew my mother-in-law's wrath wasn't something to be dismissed. I was actually looking forward to the coming storm. Sure enough, before evening fell, the hurricane made landfall. My mother-in-law, Beatrice, stormed into Clara's apartment, her face a contorted mask of fury. She didn't even acknowledge me. Clara, I heard Daniel gave you his salary card, she accused, her voice echoing in the small space. Clara stammered, shrinking back. It was Daniel's idea. I didn't ask for it. My son died and you got hundreds of thousands in compensation. Fine. I won't ask you for a penny of that since you're raising his son. But how dare you take Daniel's salary card and let his wife quit her job to take care of you? Who do you think you are? Some kind of pampered princess? Beatrice's voice rose to a crescendo. What did our family do to deserve this? Both my sons slaving away to serve you. The front door was wide open and her shouting drew the whole hallway. I immediately called Daniel. Get over here. Your mom's at Clara's making a scene and demanding money. He hung up quickly. I knew he'd come. The drama was unfolding perfectly. I was tempted to crack open some sunflower seeds. Beatrice, working herself into a righteous frenzy, suddenly dropped to her knees in front of a horrified Clara. Fine. Then I'll come over every day and take care of you myself. Mom, please get up. I can't accept this. Clara cried, jumping up and kneeling too, a bizarre tableau of supplication. What's there you can't accept? All of our family's money is in your hands. What can't you accept? Beatrice wailed. The onlookers murmured, their whispers a satisfying chorus. Isn't this the family where the husband died? She took the compensation and is still hogging the younger brother's salary card. Shameless. Yeah, I heard the sister-in-law even quit her job to be her live-in maid. The younger brother's wife is too honest, always busy taking care of everything. By the time Daniel arrived, people were pointing and whispering, calling him the younger brother from that family, gives money to his sister-in-law but nothing for his own mother. Beatrice's voice sliced through the crowd. Money for your sister-in-law but nothing for your own mother? Daniel, flushed with embarrassment, hurriedly pulled his mother into the apartment, with Clara scrambling to shut the door on the gawking neighbors. The moment we were inside, he turned his fury on me. Are you dead or something just standing there? He snarled. You couldn't even step in to stop this? I swallowed my contempt and put on a mask of helpless worry. With your mom and Clara both here, I didn't know who to help first. As if I'd stop them. I was thrilled to see the fire get stoked higher. Then Beatrice spotted the remnants of our lunch. The salmon bones, the empty dishes that had held expensive food. You won't give me $2,000 a month, but you're eating meat and fish every day. Heartless. What's the point of raising you? She cried, pointing a trembling finger at Daniel. He turned to me, his demand automatic. Where's the money? Give Mom the $2,000. Where am I supposed to get it? I asked, my voice dripping with innocent confusion. I don't even have a job now. The only $10,000 I had in my account went to Sophie's summer camp. If you don't believe me, come to the bank with me and check. I don't have a penny left. As I spoke, I dumped out the contents of my purse onto Clara's coffee table. A lipstick, some old receipts, a few coins. See? I really have no money. Daniel shot me a look of pure venom, then turned to coax his mother. Mom, we really don't have any right now. Before he could finish, she smacked him hard on the shoulder. No money? Didn't you give your salary card to your brother's widow? How could you have no money? She was working herself into a fresh rage. She's having a hard time. Didn't she get 700,000 or 800,000 in compensation from the car accident? Has she given us a single cent? No. You're all ungrateful, living the good life while we old folks starve. You probably can't wait for me to die. She then turned on Clara, grabbing her arms and shaking her. Either you give me Daniel's salary card today, or you hand over your husband's compensation money. Why should both my sons' money go to you? Clara, being yanked around, finally snapped. She reached into her bag, slammed Daniel's bank card onto the table and screamed, I don't want it. I never asked for it in the first place. Why is everyone treating me like this? Then she collapsed into a heap on the floor, sobbing dramatically. It was a performance that nearly broke Daniel's heart. Beatrice reached for the card, but Daniel was faster, snatching it back. This is mine, he declared, a strange note of possession in his voice. I'm not giving it to Clara, but I'm not giving it to you either. From now on, I'll transfer you $2,000 every month. Stop making trouble for her. With the promise of money, Beatrice's tantrums ceased immediately. She turned to leave, muttering, like I'd want to stay in this stupid city anyway. You're all useless. I walked her to the door. She rewarded me with an exaggerated eye roll before raising her voice for the benefit of the lingering neighbors. Second daughter-in-law, why don't you go get a job instead of playing maid for her? What is she, a princess? She can't cook? Then she should learn. I heard working as a maid in the city pays well. If you've got extra money, give me more. Clara's face turned a shade of purple. Daniel couldn't take it anymore and rushed his mother out the door. After she left, the silence in the apartment was thick with tension. Clara, perhaps from the genuine stress or maybe just to regain the spotlight, suddenly swooned, her eyes fluttering shut. She collapsed onto the sofa. Daniel and I scrambled to get her to the hospital. The doctor, after a brief examination, was unimpressed. There's nothing seriously wrong. Likely just emotional shock. She'll be fine after a couple of days of rest. But Clara, for reasons I couldn't fathom, or rather reasons I understood perfectly, turned delicate and clingy. She insisted on staying in the hospital. One moment she claimed her head was splitting, the next that her stomach was cramping. Daniel, of course, looked on with pity and told me to take good care of her. As I returned from the cafeteria with bland hospital food, I overheard another patient say to her companion, "Is that her husband? He's so good to her." "Of course," the companion replied. "Anyone can see how much Daniel cares for Clara. They look just like a married couple." Worst of all, after hearing that, the two of them didn't even bother to correct it. They just looked at each other and shared a small, intimate smile. Disgusting. I said nothing, not wanting to alert them. I quickly took out my phone, snapped a picture of that charged moment, then put on my innocent face and pushed the door open as if I'd seen nothing. "Daniel, the cafeteria was out of chicken soup, so I just grabbed something simple. You and Clara can make do with it." The moment I called him Daniel, the ward went silent. "Oh, he's your husband?" the first patient said, deeply embarrassed. "So, you're the younger brother-in-law and sister-in-law?" The whispers started up again, even more scandalized. With gossip that juicy, who knew how it would be twisted? Clara immediately buried her face in her hands in feigned shame. Daniel hastily made an excuse about needing to get back to the office. Oh, so now they didn't dare flirt so openly. With Clara in the hospital, the job of looking after Leo naturally fell to me. And I had a very specific plan for my precious nephew. It was time for Daniel to feel the true cost of his generosity, not in discomfort but in cold, hard cash. With Clara playing the fragile blossom in her hospital bed, the job of looking after Leo fell squarely on my shoulders. I embraced it with a zeal that would have sainted me in another life. My plan was simple. I would give the boy everything his heart desired. I took him to malls, to arcades, to movie premieres. We ate at restaurants where the children's menu cost more than our weekly grocery budget used to be. Whenever the bill came, I would hand Leo my phone. "Here, sweetie, call your Uncle Daniel. Tell him what a wonderful time we're having and that we just need a little help with the payment." Leo, thrilled with his newfound power and the absence of his mother's restraining influence, would chirp into the phone, "Uncle Daniel, we're at the Skyview Grill. The dessert here has a gold leaf on it. Can you pay for it? Aunt Lara said to ask you." I'd watch, a serene smile on my face as the cashier waited. Daniel, trapped by his own performative generosity, could never say no to the poor, fatherless boy. The payments would come through via a banking app, each digital ping a small, satisfying chime of his diminishing resources. Leo was not a frugal child. He could blow through $1,000 in an afternoon without blinking, demanding the most expensive toy in the store, the premium ticket package, the souvenir that was clearly junk but cost a fortune. I didn't stop him. I wanted to see how long Daniel's generosity would last when it was his own wallet being drained, not the abstract concept of our money. Sure enough, less than a week into this new routine, my phone rang. It was Daniel, his voice strained. "Alara, where are you taking Leo every day? The spending is out of control. He's gone through $5,000 this week." I feigned surprise. "Oh." He said these are all the places Clara usually takes him. I didn't know any better. He said he wanted to go and I couldn't just say no. I laid on the guilt thick and fast. "After all, your brother just passed. If the kid feels like we're mistreating him, how would that look?" "Even so, the spending's way too much," Daniel insisted, frustration bleeding through the line. "You have to talk to him. Rein him in a little." I almost laughed. "He wanted to play the good guy and have me be the bad one? Nice try." "Oh, I see," I said, my voice dripping with false understanding. I turned to Leo, who was holding a ridiculously overpriced remote-controlled car and about to hand my phone to the cashier for payment. "Leo, your uncle says you've been buying too much lately. He says you can't get anything today." The effect was instantaneous. The boy who had been all sunshine and smiles contorted into a red-faced demon. "I don't care. I want it. Mom said I can spend Uncle Daniel's money however I want. Why won't you let me?" he shrieked, his voice hitting a pitch that made the other shoppers wince. He bounced up and down, his little body trembling with rage, before snatching the toy and storming out of the store, heading straight for the hospital to tattle to his mother. I followed at a leisurely pace, arriving at Clara's room just in time for the main performance. Leo was already in his mother's arms, sobbing dramatically. "Mom, Uncle Daniel won't let me buy a toy." Clara, who had been in the middle of some gentle shoulder stretches, was startled by the outburst. "Oh honey, don't cry. How much was it? If Uncle Daniel won't buy it, Mommy will." She reached for her purse, the one that held the hefty compensation money she guarded like a dragon. That's when Daniel walked in, because of course I'd called him the moment we left the store. "Leo's spending is out of control. It wouldn't hurt to rein him in a little, I said the moment he entered, framing myself as the voice of reason. I had barely finished my sentence when Clara's face darkened into a mask of wounded victimhood. I knew it, she whispered, her voice trembling with manufactured hurt. We're just a widow and an orphan, so of course we get bullied. Your brother's only been gone a few days and you already won't let his child have a toy. Seeing her upset, Daniel's voice softened immediately. Clara, he's already spent $5,000 in the past few days. So what if it's $5,000? She shot back, her eyes flashing. You said you'd give me your salary card, didn't you? Now you can't even let a kid spend that much. She then shifted seamlessly into full performance mode, letting a single perfect tear trace down her cheek. If I'd known it would be like this, I'd have gone with your brother. At least I wouldn't have to stay here and suffer alone. I stood there, a cold observer, watching the two of them volley my manipulations back and forth. Daniel only made a little over $10,000 a month. Without my income, there was no way our household could function, let alone support Clara's lavish lifestyle. She, cushioned by the compensation money, was spending without a care. I was curious to see how long this charade of mutual devotion could last when real financial pressure was applied. Clara stayed in the hospital for a full week, milking her emotional shock for all it was worth. When the nurse finally came with the bill, Daniel's jaw nearly hit the floor. $20,000? He blurted out, staring at the paper in disbelief. Didn't the doctor say you were fine? Why is it so much? Clara waved a dismissive hand from her bed, as if he were complaining about the price of a coffee. What's with the fuss? It's just $20,000. She was used to spending $2,000 a session on her usual spa and wellness treatments. A 5-figure hospital bill for a few days of rest and attention didn't seem extravagant to her at all. Daniel turned to me, a silent plea in his eyes. I shook my head, my face a mask of helplessness. I haven't worked in ages. I don't have any money on me. Daniel had no choice. He swiped his own card, wincing visibly as he entered his PIN. I could almost hear the internal scream. When we finally got her home, the atmosphere in Clara's apartment was thick with unspoken resentment. Leo, oblivious, came bouncing over with a brightly colored flyer I had deliberately left on the kitchen counter. Mom, I want to join this overseas study tour. They take you to visit Harvard University. It's only $59,999. Can you sign me up, please? Please. I watched Clara's face as she took the flyer. I knew Leo had been itching to travel, and dressing it up as an educational experience was the perfect excuse for a lavish trip tailor-made for his desires. My precious son, if you want to go, of course Mom will support you, Clara said, her voice dripping with maternal affection. Then she turned her eager, expectant gaze toward Daniel. Daniel sucked in a sharp breath, his face paling. What study tour? 60,000? Sophie's summer camp for a whole month was only 10. Hearing that, Leo's face scrunched up in a theatrical pout. Uncle Daniel, didn't you say I could ask you for anything I wanted? How come now you won't give me what I want? You adults are no fun. Clara's face darkened, the loving mother vanishing to be replaced by the calculating widow. You can't even fulfill this small wish for your nephew? I wonder what your brother would think if he saw this from up there. She then shooed both Daniel and me out, claiming she was tired and needed rest. The door closed firmly behind us, a physical manifestation of the rift that was finally, gloriously beginning to crack open. On the way home, Daniel was silent, the weight of $60,000 and his sister-in-law's disapproval pressing down on him. I didn't bother speaking. The irony was almost poetic. A man who made just over $10,000 a month, insisting on financially supporting another household that saw his contribution as a mere starting point. How blind had I been in my first life, working myself to death for a man like this? As soon as we got home, Daniel finally broke the silence. Elara, he began, his voice weary, with the family finances so tight, maybe you should look for a job. I kept my expression neutral. What he meant wasn't that the family's finances were tight. It was that his wallet was feeling the strain and he needed my financial buffer back. You're right, I agreed smoothly. Now that Clara's out of the hospital and can look after her own kid, I should go find work. I had thought the $60,000 trip would finally make Daniel balk. But to my stunned disbelief, he actually paid for it. A few days later, my social media feed was filled with Clara's photos from abroad, Clara and Leo beaming in front of Harvard's gates, Clara sipping a cocktail on a sunny terrace, Clara shopping on Newberry Street. The caption read, "Investing in Leo's future. So grateful for family support." A wave of cold nausea washed over me. I screenshotted the post and sent it to Daniel. "Claire and Leo are abroad now. Did you pay for that?" His reply was swift. "Claire's had a hard time. Money can always be earned again." The text blurred in front of my eyes. My own daughter's $10,000 summer camp had been too expensive in his eyes, but $60,000 for Claire's luxury vacation was just fine. My labor, my sacrifices, my very life in the previous timeline, it was all worth nothing. I was just the fool footing the bill for his precious sister-in-law's family. That was the moment the last shred of any lingering sentiment I had for our marriage evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, hardened resolve. I needed to speed up my plan to leave this house, this life, for good. If I didn't, I would be stuck serving Clara's family for the rest of my life, a ghost in my own story. But Daniel would never agree to a divorce now. He needed my potential income, my labor. I would have to make him bring it up himself. It was time to stop merely reacting and to start orchestrating the final act. The stage was set for the grand finale, and I was ready to play my most daring role yet, a dying woman with one last wish. The sight of Clara's smiling face against a backdrop of Harvard's hallowed halls was the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. Daniel's text, "Money can always be earned again," was its epitaph. The nausea that churned in my stomach wasn't from disgust alone. It was a cold, focused rage. I had been too passive, merely redirecting their greed. It was time to become the architect of their downfall. I pretended to spend the next few days job hunting. I'd leave in the morning with a resume folder and return hours later, sighing about the market being tough. At home, I let the domestic infrastructure crumble. I stopped cleaning. I stopped cooking anything more complex than toast. I let the laundry pile up into a miniature Alp of neglect. Most importantly, I let the utility bills go unpaid. One evening, I came home to a pitch-dark apartment. The air was stale and hot. Before my eyes could adjust, Daniel's voice came out of the gloom, making me jump. "Where have you been? You didn't even notice the electricity's out." I fumbled for my phone, using its flashlight to illuminate his angry, sweaty face. "Where do you think I was?" "Looking for work." I snapped, my tone sharp and frayed. "We can't even pay the electric bill. If I don't get a job, we'll be living on air and good intentions." "Honey, I was just asking," he said, his voice softening into a wheedling tone that made my skin crawl. "You've always been the one to pay the electricity bill. I don't even know how." "Then learn." I shot back, the flashlight beam shaking in my hand. "You figured out how to send your nephew on a $60,000 trip abroad, didn't you?" I brought up the trip, the number hanging in the dark between us like a specter. That made him bristle. The mask of concerned husband slipped. "That's my money. I can spend it however I want." "What's it to me, Daniel? We're married. Do you understand the concept of joint marital assets?" My voice was ice. "You can blow $60,000 on another woman's kid, but the electricity bill in your own home is waiting for your wife to pay?" Incredible. We had a full-blown screaming argument in the dark, our voices echoing in the barren apartment. I used the overseas trip as the spark, and I fed the flames with every forgotten chore, every unpaid bill, every reminder of the comfort we had lost. He was on the defensive, his justifications sounding hollow even to himself. Sometime later, I began the second phase of my performance. I made sure to arrive at the hospital for a fictitious follow-up appointment at the exact time Clara was scheduled for one of her many wellness checkups. I waited in the corridor, clutching a folded piece of paper, and practiced looking utterly broken. When I saw her, I stumbled forward, intentionally bumping into her. She stumbled, landing hard on the polished floor with a sharp cry of pain and annoyance. "Hey, watch where you're going," she snapped, looking up. Her expression shifted from irritation to shock when she saw it was me. "Alara, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just clutched the fake medical report I had meticulously created on my computer, letting tears stream down my face in a silent, pathetic river. Clara's eyes, sharp with curiosity, dropped to the paper. "Alara, what's wrong?" She reached out and snatched it from my trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the document. I saw the moment she comprehended the words, Stage 3 gastric carcinoma. Her jaw went slack. "Stomach cancer?" she whispered, her voice a mix of genuine shock and something else. Something that looked uncomfortably like opportunity. I grabbed the report back quickly, holding it to my chest as if it were a state secret. "Clara, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "Don't tell anyone. Especially not Daniel. If he finds out, he'll definitely divorce me." "I know he will." She hesitated for a moment, her mind working behind her eyes. Then she arranged her features into a mask of solemn sympathy. "All right," she said, placing a hand on my arm. "I won't tell him." She even put on a show of comforting me for a few minutes, her words empty and rehearsed. Of course, I knew she would tell him immediately. That was the entire point. That evening, for the first time in weeks, Daniel was home before me. He had even, inexplicably, picked up takeout from a decent place. The electricity was back on. He must have paid the bill himself. Halfway through the meal, I pushed my food around my plate, then suddenly clapped a hand over my mouth. I bolted to the bathroom, making loud, retching sounds. I splashed water on my face to make it pale before emerging. "Elara, are you okay?" Daniel asked, his voice laden with a concern I knew was fake. Clara had already done her part. "It's nothing," I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. "Just the heat. Maybe I ate something too greasy at lunch." I sat back down and forced myself to take another bite, chewing slowly as if it were sand. Daniel studied me, his eyes narrowed with a suspicion that was exactly what I wanted. In his mind, my behavior was no longer that of a rebellious wife, but of a woman hiding a terminal illness. Over the next few days I perfected the routine. I timed it so that just as he walked in the door he would hear me retching in the bathroom. I'd hurry out, looking wan, claiming it was just indigestion. I left fake clinic referral slips for endoscopies in my jacket pockets where he would find them. I started moving slower, as if burdened by a great weight. "Elara, what's wrong with you lately?" he asked one evening, his voice a careful blend of husbandly duty and barely concealed anxiety. "Should we go to the hospital?" No, I insisted, waving a dismissive hand. "I went to the clinic already. The doctor said it's just indigestion. Told me to take some stomach medicine and avoid spicy food." I gave him a brave, wobbly smile. "It's nothing." After hearing this a few times, Daniel became convinced. He watched me like a hawk, his expression a mixture of pity and a strange, calculating impatience. The pieces were fitting together in his mind. My sudden desire to secure our daughter's future, my erratic behavior, my secret illness. When Sophie's summer camp ended, I pulled a rejuvenated, happy Sophie along with a reluctant Daniel to look at houses in a top school district. "Why are we suddenly thinking about buying a house?" he asked, his hesitation palpable. "We don't have money for that right now." "I've been looking," I said, my voice earnest. "The down payment for new developments in the Lincoln High Zone is surprisingly low right now. I can borrow some from my family. We'll just buy it for Sophie to get into a good school, then sell it after she's enrolled. We'll only lose a bit in loan interest." Then I lowered my voice, pretending to mutter to myself but loud enough for him to hear, "There's not much time, not much I can do for my daughter." Those words, soaked in subtext, hit him exactly as I'd intended. He paused, his resolve softening. "But we still have a mortgage on this place," he argued weakly. "The down payment for a second home would be even higher." "Not if we get a first home loan," I said, as if the idea had just occurred to me. "If we fake a divorce, the purchase would count as a first home. Then we'd get the lower down payment and better rates." "Fake divorce." His eyes flickered, not with shock but with intense, immediate thought. I could see the gears turning. A sick wife. Financial burden. A clean escape with a new asset in his name. "It's just on paper," I reassured him, pressing my advantage. "Once we get the house, we'll remarry. You can understand. It's for Sophie's schooling." I framed it as a pragmatic, temporary sacrifice. Daniel hesitated, but it was the hesitation of a man who has already made up his mind. "Let me think about it for a couple of days," he said, but his tone was one of agreement. The next day Clara came to the house, her visit far too timely to be a coincidence. "I heard you're looking for a school district house for Sophie," she said, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "I thought I'd get some ideas too. For Leo's future, you know." "Sis, aren't you planning to buy a place too?" I played along, my voice warm. "I think you should check these out. It'll be convenient for Leo's schooling later." I handed her several folders of listings I'd gathered. Here, these are the ones I've researched with school zones and price per square foot. Clara flipped through them absently, her real mission clear. So, you really are looking, and you're still not planning to tell Daniel about your illness? I let a shadow of profound sadness cross my face. I'll wait until the house situation is settled. We don't have much money now. Once Sophie's school district is secured, my mind will be at peace. I looked down at my hands. If we have money, I'll treat it. But I can leave without worry. Don't say such unlucky things, Clara said, but her eyes were bright with triumph. She had gotten the confirmation she needed. I knew she'd go straight to Daniel and tell him I was really sick, that I desperately wanted to buy a school district house for our daughter, and that the fake divorce had no hidden agenda, only the desperate act of a dying woman. Sure enough, that evening, Daniel came home and told me he agreed to the fake divorce. He was almost cheerful about it. The current house, which is under your name, can stay yours, he said magnanimously, as if bestowing a great favor. The second house we buy later will go under my name. It's cleaner that way. We had no savings and no significant assets to divide. The process was quick, a mere administrative formality. Before long, we were standing outside the civil affairs office, the final divorce papers in hand. Daniel let out a deep, audible sigh, as if he had finally shaken off a great, terrible weight. I gave a cold, internal laugh. He thought he was free. He thought he had outmaneuvered a dying woman. He had no idea that the grand finale was about to begin, and that he was not the director but merely a player on my stage. The final curtain was ready to rise. Walking out of the civil affairs office, the cheap paper of the divorce certificate felt like a winning lottery ticket in my hand. Daniel's sigh of relief was a gust of wind at my back, propelling me toward the finish line. He thought he was free of a sick, burdensome wife. He thought he had played me. Little did he know the chessboard was mine and he had just walked his king directly into checkmate. We drove home in a silence that was, for him, triumphant and for me, anticipatory. When we opened the door, the scene that greeted us was both expected and deeply satisfying. Clara and Leo were there, their suitcases piled in the middle of our living room. They weren't visiting. They were moving in. Clara sat on our sofa, my sofa, with the air of a queen who had just reclaimed her throne. She looked from Daniel to me, a smug, victorious smile playing on her lips. Elara. Daniel. Finally, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. You're divorced now, so of course this house belongs to us. She leaned back, spreading her arms. Finally, a painless divorce. You have no idea how long Daniel and I have been waiting for this day. Always wondering how to get you out. She let out a theatrical little sigh. Never thought you'd suggest a fake divorce yourself. How stupid can you be? I glanced at Daniel. His face was a canvas of flustered panic. This was happening too fast, too openly for his comfort. Clara, what are you doing here all of a sudden? He hissed, trying to pull her aside. We just got divorced today. You're divorced, why can't I come? She retorted, her voice rising. You promised me. You said once the divorce was done, you'd give me a home. The bickering had begun already. It was music to my ears. I let them go for a moment, savoring the chaos, before I decided it was time to end the performance. I walked calmly to the desk in the corner, opened a drawer and pulled out a single crucial document. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. My voice was calm, clear, and cut through their argument like a knife. Clara, I said. She turned, her expression annoyed at the interruption. Look closely. I held up the property deed. Whose name is on this deed? Her eyes, so full of smug certainty, darted to the paper. He saw it. A single name. My Elara Vance. Not Daniel's. The blood drained from her face. The victory in her eyes extinguished and replaced with pure, unadulterated fury. She whipped her head around to glare at Daniel. You lied to me, she shrieked, her voice cracking. You said once the divorce was done, you'd give me a home. Daniel, cornered and exposed, shed his last veneer of chivalry. His face hardened into a mask of selfish pragmatism. Yes, that's what I said, he replied, his tone shameless. But don't you have your late husband's compensation money? We can just buy our own place with that. The blatant admission was breathtaking. He had been after her money all along. The devoted brother-in-law was a fraud. Clara let out a guttural scream of rage and launched herself at him, her fists flying. You were after my money all along. Daniel grabbed her wrists, stopping her blows. So what? He snarled, his own anger boiling over. Alara won't live much longer anyway. When she's gone, this house will be mine and my daughter will be too young to contest it. It was the perfect plan. There was the final, ugly truth laid bare in my living room. He had been counting on my death. He had planned to steal my daughter's inheritance. It was time for the final reveal. I reached into my bag and pulled out the fake medical report. I didn't hand it to them. I crumpled it and tossed it at their feet where it belonged. You mean the stomach cancer? I asked, my voice dripping with icy contempt. Sorry, that was fake. I'm perfectly healthy. The effect was electric. They both froze, their fight forgotten, their faces a perfect mirror of stunned, horrified disbelief. You lied to me, Alara. You liar. They shouted in ragged unison, their voices a blend of betrayal and fury. They both rushed toward me, but they were too late. I had already pressed a button on my phone. The front door swung open and 2 building security guards I had prepaid and stationed in the hallway stepped in. These people are trespassing, I said, my voice steady as I flashed the property deed and the fresh divorce certificate. I am the sole owner of this property and I want them removed. Immediately. The guards, large and impassive, moved forward. Clara was screaming, a wordless howl of rage. Daniel was sputtering, trying to reason, to threaten, but it was useless. Their luggage was gathered and they were physically escorted out of my home, their shouts and curses fading as the guards marched them down the hallway. I closed the door. The silence that descended was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Divorced. The house mine. My daughter's future secure. The trash had been taken out and the clean, free air was intoxicating. But I wasn't done. Reclaiming my life was only the first step. They needed to face the consequences of their actions. In the days that followed, I packaged my evidence. The recordings of their conversations, the photos of their intimate moments in the hospital, the financial records showing Daniel's misuse of our marital funds for Clara's benefit. I wrote a concise, damning email and sent it to the HR department of Daniel's company, Sihinji, his direct superior. He was fired within the week for gross misconduct and misuse of company resources, or so the generic termination letter stated. I knew the real reason was the sordid scandal of him financially abandoning his wife and child for his brother's widow. As for Clara and Daniel, their true love couldn't survive the harsh light of financial reality. Without his job, Daniel was a leech with no host. Clara, unwilling to part with a single cent of her precious compensation money, refused to support him, let alone marry him. The fair-weather romance evaporated in an instant. The fallout was swift and brutal. Daniel, furious and humiliated, confronted her. It turned violent. Clara, in a fit of self-preservation, called the police. He was arrested for assault. My in-laws, upon hearing their golden boy was in jail, directed their fury where it belonged, at the woman they believed had seduced and ruined him. They stormed over to Clara's apartment, standing in the street and screaming that she was a shameless hussy who had destroyed their family. The whole neighborhood now knew their sordid story. I watched the chaos from a distance, a quiet spectator to the inferno I had engineered. There was no joy in it, not exactly. It was a grim, cold satisfaction. The scales had been balanced. The predators had turned on each other. Let the dogs tear each other apart. My war was over. I had my daughter, my home, and my life back. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, the future was mine to write, and it was filled with a peace I had fought hell to earn. The silence in the wake of their departure was a physical presence, thick and sweet as honey. I walked through the rooms of my house, touching the walls, the furniture, each familiar object now imbued with a new significance. They were no longer just things. They were battlements I had successfully defended. The air itself felt different. Lighter, cleaner, scented with freedom instead of resentment. The first thing I did was call Sophie at her camp. Her voice, bright and clear over the line, was the final balm on my soul. Mom, is it true? We don't have to go to Aunt Clara's anymore? We can use our own air conditioner. Yes, baby. It's all true. It's just us now. I didn't burden her with the details of the divorce or the ugliness. I simply told her that Daddy was going to live somewhere else for a while, and that we were going to be a team, just the 2 of us. The relief in her young voice was a testament to the tension she had sensed but never fully understood. When she returned from camp, the change in her was immediate. She slept in her own bed in her own cool room, without the underlying anxiety that had plagued her before. She devoured the food in our fridge without asking if it was okay, her small shoulders finally free of a weight she should never have had to carry. We spent our evenings watching movies on a new modest TV I bought, the simple act of choosing a program together feeling like a revolutionary act of peace. Meanwhile, the fallout from my carefully laid plans continued to ripple outwards. Daniel, fired and disgraced, had moved back in with his parents in their rural town. The word from a talkative cousin was that he was drowning his humiliation in self-pity and bitterness, blaming everyone, Clara for her greed, me for my deceit, his parents for their pressure, for his downfall, never once looking in the mirror. Clara, however, was not one to fade quietly into the background. A week after the eviction, she began her campaign. It started with text. Clara, I know we've had our differences, but Leo misses his cousin. He's so lonely. Can Sophie come over for a playdate? The audacity was stunning. I didn't bother to reply. The messages evolved. You've turned everyone against me. You have no idea what it's like to be alone. Daniel's family is harassing me. They call me a gold digger. He did this. Then the calls started. I let them go to voicemail. Her messages became increasingly unhinged, veering from pathetic self-pity to sharp, accusatory rants. She was a vortex of drama, and having lost her primary sources of attention and support, Daniel and the sympathy of the neighborhood, she was trying to pull me back in. I blocked her number. She then began using Leo's tablet to message Sophie's child-friendly messenger app. Leo says, "Can you come play? I have new video game." I sat Sophie down. Honey, things with Aunt Claire and Leo are complicated right now. It's better if we don't see them for a while. Sophie, with the simple wisdom of a child who had seen too much, just nodded. Hey Mom. He always hogged the controller anyway. I smiled, but a cold knot formed in my stomach. Claire was like a tick burrowing in, refusing to let go. I knew this wasn't over. The final act of her initial offensive came on a Saturday morning. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw her standing there, Leo sullenly at her side. She was holding a poorly wrapped present. I opened the door but kept the chain on. Clara, what do you want? Her face was a tragic mask. Alara, please. I wanted to apologize. For everything. And I brought a gift for Sophie. For her birthday last month. I forgot with everything that was happening. She held up the present. It was a transparent ploy, a flimsy excuse to cross the threshold. Mail it, I said, my voice flat. Her mask slipped. You can't just cut us out. Leo is family. He's your nephew. He is, I agreed calmly. And when he's old enough to have a relationship with us that isn't mediated by your drama, my door will be open to him. Until then, you are not welcome here. Do not come back. I closed the door on her sputtering protests. I watched through the window as she stood there for a full minute, shaking with rage before grabbing Leo's arm and storming off. The gift, I noticed, she took with her. This, I realized, was the new front in the war. The big battles were over, but the guerrilla warfare of harassment had begun. I couldn't live looking over my shoulder waiting for her next move. I needed a more permanent solution. I needed to sever the last financial thread that Daniel might still try to pull. Our divorce was final, the house was mine, but there was still the matter of Sophie. I needed full legal custody with Daniel's parental rights severely restricted. I gathered my evidence. The records of him giving his entire income to Clara, the testimony from his former employer about his character, the police report from his arrest. I documented every harassing call and message from Clara. I filed the motion for sole legal and physical custody, with supervised visitation for Daniel only at a designated center, citing his financial abandonment, moral unfitness, and the toxic environment of his association with Clara. The court date was set. It was the final anchor I needed to drop, securing my and Sophie's ship forever in safe harbor, untouchable by the storms they continued to brew. The peace I had won was precious, and I would defend it with the same ferocity I had used to win it. The battle for our future was entering its final legal phase. The family courthouse was a world of hushed tones, polished floors, and the profound, weary gravity of broken relationships. Sophie was with a trusted friend for the day. I walked in alone, but I felt the weight of my previous life, my previous death, walking with me, a silent witness demanding justice. Daniel was already there, slumped in a chair in the hallway. He looked older, diminished. His cheap suit was wrinkled and he couldn't meet my eyes. His parents flanked him, their expressions a mixture of defiance and deep shame. They offered me a tight, miserable nod which I did not return. They were complicit in this and we all knew it. Clara was notably absent. I hadn't expected her. She had gotten what she wanted from Daniel. Nothing, and had likely moved on to her next source of drama or funding. Our lawyers conferred in low murmurs. Mine, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Evans, had been thoroughly briefed and was confidently armed with a fat folder of evidence. Daniel's court-appointed lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. When we were called into the courtroom, the formalities were brief. The judge, a woman with tired eyes and a firm mouth, reviewed the paperwork. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "The petition before me is for sole legal and physical custody of your daughter, Sophie Vance, to be granted to the mother, Elara Vance. The mother's filing cites financial abandonment and a concerning domestic environment. How do you respond?" Daniel shifted in his seat. "Your Honor, I love my daughter. What happened with Clara, it was a mistake. A moment of weakness after my brother's death. I'm her father." The judge's eyes flicked to me. "Mrs. Vance." Miss Evans stood. "Your Honor, if I may." She proceeded to lay out the case with surgical precision. She presented bank statements showing a near-total diversion of marital income to Clara Evans for over 6 months. She entered the termination letter from his company, highlighting the conduct unbecoming. She submitted the police report for his arrest for assault against Ms. Evans. Finally, she presented the log of harassing messages from Clara, demonstrating the persistent toxic presence Mr. Vance had enabled and now could not protect his daughter from. Mr. Vance chose to be a father figure and primary provider for his nephew at the direct, documented expense of his own wife and child, Ms. Evans concluded. He has demonstrated a profound lack of judgment and moral compass that makes him an unfit influence at this time. Daniel's lawyer offered a weak rebuttal about grief and manipulation, but it was like trying to stop a tidal wave with a teacup. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge listened, her face impassive. She asked Daniel a few direct questions about his current employment, none, his living situation with his parents, and his plan for supporting Sophie, vague mutterings. After a final review of the documents, she took off her glasses. "The well-being of the child is the paramount concern of this court," she said, her tone final. "Mr. Vance, your actions show a consistent and deliberate pattern of neglecting your primary familial duties. You financially abandoned your child. You involved yourself in a volatile domestic situation that resulted in criminal charges. The court cannot, in good conscience, place a minor in that environment." He turned to me. "Mrs. Vance, the petition for sole legal and physical custody is granted. Mr. Vance will have supervised visitation, to be arranged through the Family Services Center once per month. He is ordered to pay child support, the amount to be set based on imputed income." She banged her gavel. "Next case." It was over. Just like that. Daniel looked like he'd been gut-punched. His mother started to cry silent, ashamed tears. His father just stared at the floor. I felt no triumph, only a profound, bone-deep relief. It was done. The last loose thread had been tied, the last door locked. Sophie was unequivocally, legally mine. Miss Evans shook my hand. "It was a clean case. You did the right thing, documenting everything." I walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun. The world seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. The anchor had been dropped. We were safe. Weeks turned into months. The child support payments when they came were erratic and small, but we didn't need them. I found a good job, one that didn't require me to work myself to death. Sophie thrived at her new school, her grades improving now that her home life was stable and quiet. Clara eventually faded from our lives. The harassment stopped. I heard through the grapevine she had moved to a different city, perhaps to find a new brother-in-law to charm or a new tragedy to exploit. One evening, Sophie and I were planting flowers in our small garden. Our garden. She was chattering about a school project, her hands covered in dirt, her face smudged and happy. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a child who was no longer just surviving but living, flourishing. The ghosts of my past life were finally, completely laid to rest. The bitterness, the rage, the cold calculation, it had all served its purpose. It had built this simple, quiet moment of planting marigolds with my daughter in the golden hour of a peaceful evening. The war was over. We had won. And our peace was not just the absence of conflict, but the vibrant, growing, beautiful life we were building together day by day. We were no longer just survivors. We were the architects of our own joy. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. "Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here?" I probed cautiously. "For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience," my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the 3rd day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment, I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. "Mr. George, we found the safe deposit box," the officer said over the phone. "Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence." A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Frank frowned. "That blood amber is priceless." "That's exactly why," I said firmly. "Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish." For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only a year and a half. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. "The case is finally over," Frank said. "Are you planning to exhibit your painting?" "Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale." The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. "Mr. George," a stranger's voice called from behind. "Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared." He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. "And you are?" "I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area," she explained with a smile. "I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit." "Thank you." I nodded. "I'll be leaving soon." She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. "That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive." "It's blood amber," I explained, "a very rare gemstone." "I know," she said softly, "top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare." I looked at her in surprise. "You know a lot about jewelry?" She smiled. "I studied jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here." For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. "If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting?" she asked. "My wife," I replied. "She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer." "I'm very sorry," she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. "This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently." She nodded thoughtfully. "Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her." For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. "Sorry, I have to continue my rounds." She glanced at her watch. "See you tomorrow, Mr. George." "See you tomorrow," I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, The exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, the pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall, but there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time, I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of Teacher Nicole and Teacher George. After the exhibition, the three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, See, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. Am I really up to the task? She asked me in the studio. You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone, I assured her. That's exactly what I need. In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, She seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes, even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. "The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design." "Perhaps," I said. "Everyone has the possibility of being reborn." On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. Thank you, I whispered to Nicole. Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole, she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. This is an unprecedented opportunity, Frank said excitedly. If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market. I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. Which offer are you planning to accept? One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. To be honest, I'm still hesitating. Nicole paused her work. These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you. She looked straight into my eyes. Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it? Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. You should consider your own career development, I said tactfully. These opportunities are very rare for young designers. Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. I understand. In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. Congratulations, I said sincerely. It's a very good choice. Thank you, she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. I think this is the best arrangement for both of us. Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. Are you really going to just let her go like this? What do you mean? I pretended not to understand. Don't play dumb, man, Frank said bluntly. You have feelings for her. That's obvious. That's just professional rapport, I argued. Is that so? Frank looked at me meaningfully. Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France? I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about, Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence. No matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.